Welcome again to another edition of the Youth Roundtable 2025 series. Today, this afternoon, we want to welcome you from the Matters Day celebrations that took place on the 3rd June. That was Tuesday. Joining me today is a panel of ladies and gentlemen as we discuss the topic issues around the DP Delegates Conference that took place in Mbarara, but we shall also take enough of our time to look at the NGO, the Non-Government Organization Legal Framework 2016, amended 2010, on this particular series of the Youth Roundtable. Allow me introduce to you our guests today that are joining us for the Youth Roundtable show. From my extreme left is the Honourable Asiimwe Derrick, is from the National Unity Platform. You're most welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Wow. You've been with us before?
I've been here last year with Mr. Moses Chidega, and it's a pleasure to be back.
Wow. It is always good having you here. As you move towards my right, from my extreme left, is a social justice activist. I hope I've pronounced it correctly. Edmund Ayesigwa. You're most welcome to the show.
Thank you.
He's making it to the show for his maiden appearance as the Youth Roundtable. We always look to have you, especially on issues of social justice and the organization that I have forgotten, but you'll tell us more about your organization later. It is always good to give people referrals for business purposes via the Youth Roundtable as our guest for the show today. Yes, at the center of the Youth Roundtable today is a friend of mine, someone we are very familiar with on the panel. That is Melody Nakalanzi. You're most welcome to the Youth Roundtable today.
Thank you, Ivan. It's always a pleasure being here with you.
Closest to me is a man that has come from Mbarara, who spent the weekend in Mbarara, the oldest party in the country, that is the Democratic Party. Did have its delegates conference of voting in 2 new leadership as a requirement of the Political Party and Organization Act. A party is stipulated a period of time that is supposed to change leaders and submit to Electoral Commission for gazetting. Is Wamono Isaac, is a member of the Uganda Young Democrats. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much for having me here. It is my second time and I'm grateful. Thank you very much.
It is your second time, and I'll start with you since we want to give assessment to our political parties, especially traditional parties that have seen this country over time. Whereas these parties were once in power and may no longer be in power, but they have created a very significant role in nurturing leaders and also seeing that they build a political environment. A party does employ staff, a party does give a country direction. We have a lot of people who are a product of the UYD, the likes of the Honourable Medad Segonas and the Right Honourable Mpugas. I want to pick from you. Give us, as the youth on the Youth Roundtable, what events have been happening down at the Democratic Party and the brief of the Delegates Conference.
All right, thank you, Ivan, and my colleagues who are here today. As you already said, my name is Wamono Isaac. I come from Manafwa, Far East Manafwa District, and I'm the youth leader, UYD Manafwa District. You know, many things happen in DP, and today I think basically we shall talk about the NDC that happened in Mbarara, which concluded yesterday. But some of our members are actually leaving today because of different reasons. I mean, DP has, I think it should be on record that we organized one of the most sham, one of the most irregular, one of the most unfair elections in the history of parties in Uganda. I think I'll break down whatever happened in Barara in three categories. One is about the whole nomination process, and secondly about the welfare that was there, and thirdly maybe about the logistics. And about the nomination process, I think from the very beginning of nominating and picking nomination forms, we all picked different people picked nomination forms depending on their aspirations to different positions. And presidential candidates were four. We had the Honourable Norbert Mau, who is actually the incumbent, and as per se, the elect. And we had the Honourable Aliyah of Arua. Then we had the Honourable Garurume of Uikwe, and we had Engineer Sebamara Richard. I mean, all of us, as the question says of DP, that whenever someone shows aspirations to any position, if someone doesn't qualify for that position, he's supposed to be told by the Electoral Commission that because of these and these reasons, you don't qualify to vie for such a position.
Not being nominated, then you
No, that's not right. Because nominations are supposed to be held at the Delegates Conference. Because it is actually the Electoral Commission that's supposed to nominate candidates. And before the NDC, we always have leadership in different positions. But at the point of holding the NDC, all the positions, all the leaderships have to be dissolved and come up with new leadership, including the Electoral Commission. So the Electoral Commission, which has been there from 2020 to 2025, was supposed to be dissolved. Then we come up with a new EC that's supposed to nominate candidates. So however candidates submitted their forms were supposed to be nominated by the new EC. But all the EC had the mandate of notifying candidates that you don't qualify for this position based on this and this. And that never happened. Another thing, the question says every candidate who has showed interest in leading the party, he's supposed to be available by the delegates list at least 14 days before the NDC. And that never happened. All of us went for the National Delegates Conference without knowing who is going to vote and who is not going to vote. I mean, these are all irregularities, and it was my first time of attending the NDC, and I got all the reasons as why DP will never leave courts of law. Because every time we are doing wrong things and we are doing it in front of camera. So what do you expect people to do after that? Of course, they'll go to court. And these were Engineer Sebamara was removed from the race. And he was not given an opportunity to ask as to why he was removed. All the candidates who were disqualified were not told as why they were disqualified. And why would you disqualify him from a race without telling me why I'm not running for that race? So that we can leave it at that. I mean, during the voting itself, all of us were on media platforms and
Sunday at 6:30 p.m.
Yeah, and we saw whatever. It wasn't 6:30. I think voting started I think it was around 11 the night. That's when voting started. I'm being honest. And
ended in the morning at 3 on Monday.
Exactly.
At least that I was in.
Yes.
You voted in the night.
In the night, yes. And all the three, of course, we were supposed to report there on Thursday. And for the 2 days we spent in Bara, we were actually wasting time. We wasted time on Thursday, we wasted time on Tuesday, I mean on Friday, we wasted time
on Saturday.
On Saturday.
You voted Sunday night.
And you wonder what we're doing.
And you had to remove their tents Sunday night so that the next day you had nowhere.
Exactly. So whatever happened in Mbarara was a disgrace to DP and to everybody.
Before you use big words, let me come to the Honourable Asiimwe Derrick.
Yes,
Honourable Asiimwe Derrick, the Democratic Party was very essential in the post-independence Uganda.
That is
Since
true.
it was formed 8 years before we achieved our independence as a country.
That is 1954?
1954.
Around,
Yeah, those were 8 years before 1962. Over the years, it has had contributions towards seeing that Uganda's the democratic landscape looks so like it looks today. Biggest part I can defend DP, it has nurtured a lot of leaders, including the Lord Mayor of Kampala. And my question is, as a member of a young political party, what lessons do you pick from the activities that took place in Mbarara? Where a National Delegates Conference was manned by a Deputy RDC instead of the Secretary General of the party.
And actually, I don't know if one of the ONC bosses also was in place.
He claims it was his first time to be invited to it.
So
in the law, invitations are allowed.
They are allowed, so we shall hear from him maybe. As a member of the National Unity Platform, first of all, I want to acknowledge DP. DP has been here. We can't sham it.
Actually, your party president was a member of DP at some point.
We can't sham it. It has nurtured different leaders. Always, what removes political parties from the track, they're always leaders. Political parties are nurtured by leaders. I want to commend the Honourable Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, for he has done a great job towards driving DP to the ocean, never to resurface. He is at the helm of the political party. This is for the 4th or the 5th term.
Since 2010.
Since 2010, the 4th term.
He lost in 2005, then he won in 2010.
Great. So, Norbert Mao has done a great job
15 years.
washing DP off the face of the Ugandan political space. We commend him. Norbert Mao, in some few years ago, when the Right Honourable, the Mayor, Kampala, Elias Lukwago, when he crossed from DP to FDC, he made a good comment. He said that when the people who have been cohabiting finally get married, we celebrate. He was very vocal, stating that the departure of the Lord Mayor is going to create space for other leaders to come. I'm building somewhere. Fast forward, he made an MOU with Mr. Museveni in the ruling government. I don't know if the delegates had a contribution to it, or it was him and his Secretary General, Siranda, and maybe his Deputy President, Mr. Ambide, who were in the farming of that MOU. I don't know if the other comment will really apply to Mr. Mao. For now, I'm only castigating Mr. Mao because he's at the helm of DP. He's the one who is washing DP off the grid of Uganda.
They re-elected him with 969
with 969 votes. Now, you can't dine with the devil and you expect the devil not to engulf you. Whatever happened in the delegates conference is from somewhere. You can't dine with Mr. Museveni and you expect not to act as him. One of the last president generals, the late Samuel Gerere, he served in Museveni's government.
Yeah, he was a minister of
Wasn't DP afloat? It was. It was afloat, DP. When Kawanga was serving.
He was a minister of internal affairs.
Yes. And now, I don't know if that set precedent for Mr. Mao to come and also...
He was the second, but Ngaya was also a minister in Obote's government as DP president.
True. Now, I don't know if that is what inspired Mr. Mao to go to Mr. Museveni. So, whatever was happening in the DP Delegates Conference, I, for one, I expected it. Waste time, let the people of the tent take the tent, bring kanyamas everywhere, announce yourself as a winner. So, to the comrades in DP, all I can say, don't give up. You can still revive your party. And we are also here as the National Unity Platform to give you refugee.
No.
We are going to welcome you with both hands. But I vividly condemn whatever happened in the Delegates Conference of DP in line with democracy that we intend to put on table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Edmund, I know you observe a lot of these internal shortfalls within political parties, and looking at the challenges facing internal democracies in political parties, and what you've heard from the UYD and a grandchild of DP, that is the National Unity Platform. What comments do you give our viewers for the situation of the Democratic Party? We all love DP because of its contribution it has had to Uganda, that we can't celebrate its challenges, but rather bring them here on the youth round table and we engage.
Well, thank you. And well, it's sad. I could tell from the tone of the UYD man, and
their motto is truth and justice. So he was speaking in line with truth and justice.
It's sad. It's sad when you think these are supposed to be the alternative for what we are fighting. Because if you look at the situation in the country, and you look at the manner and conduct of elections, whether national, whether by-election, whether whatever it is, whatever election, what happened at DP is only a replica of what happens in the entire country. But it's even sadder that these are supposed to be the alternative. They are the people we are supposed to be looking at and saying, oh, look, if these ones get away, these ones will manage the process. But if a member is telling you that was the most sham election he has ever experienced, I don't know what the hope for the country is. I was hoping he was going to say the National Unity Platform is, but
they are going for vetting.
He's taking his time to. I would come back to that later.
No, but you see, he makes a comment that parties are built by leaders, and that's why he's castigating Norbert Mao. And I agree with him. Norbert has a very big role to play in where the DP is.
You offer direction.
And I feel like the biggest problem that we have as a country, and not just political parties, this is a general observation, is that when the people in the Constituent Assembly sat to draft the Constitution, they chose to get power and invest it in one man. The president shall appoint this, the president shall appoint this, the president, everyone.
And the one man was there as the control.
Now, when we ignore the structures that should matter, that is why you'll
power
have...
is not decentralized.
Exactly. That's why you'll have an election like what happened, and everyone is telling you, hey, this is being done at the orders of Norbert Mao. Yet you have a structure. That's why you're saying the election was manned by an RDC, a deputy RDC, when there is a secretary general of the party. And that's total disregard of party structures. That's total disregard of party constitutionalism. So how then are these people going to observe the constitutionalism of the country when they talk over power? And for me, honestly, I sympathize with them. I also sympathize with them. It's not easy anywhere. Because I feel like their hands are tied. This is the system you have to work in. This is the system we have created. So even in those many years, I think it doesn't matter how many years the DP has been there. If right now where we are, they can't talk, they can't do anything. Like he's saying, that's why they are not getting out of court. But for a party that is the Democratic Party, and it does not exhibit even democracy the size of a mustard seed, you have a party election that is full of violence. People are living with injuries to vote a president of a party.
The Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs.
Oh, I didn't want to get there. But for me, honestly, it is sad, and it speaks to the bigger picture of where the country is. And every day that I see these things happen, I lose hope of the liberation of this country. I don't know if the party that is 70 years is going to save us, or the other one is going to save us, or if we've just got to tighten our seatbelts and fight by ourselves.
Melody, I want you to give us, from what colleagues have contributed in line with the topic, what are your views? I don't want to deviate any from what preambles have been said. What may be your views on the topic?
All right. Well, so Edmund says that we cannot just discredit DP and things like that. I think Uganda is already facing a lot of problems, not just about the politics, but also how society is, how like economics is and everything like that. Notice that these things are always shaped by government and are shaped by the politics. Environment that we live in is shaped by those things. But when you have political parties that are supposed to be saying that we think NRM has ruled for long and what they are doing is not something that we think is right, and then you cannot even like have an election at the barest minimum and say that, and because this is more like an internal election anyways, so you cannot have an organized internal election, you cannot have the right way, like you're not having the election the right way it should be, then I do not know then who is going to take over government. He says they think that NUP can welcome the people that are from UYD and maybe DP. That would be a very big, that is a total disgrace to the people that are going to be coming from DP. These political parties are more or less the same. Even when you go to FDC, it is a broken institution itself. You go to NUP, it is more confused even compared to FDC. These guys are having their own people changing. I am not pointing at anyone. Are having their own people changing from one party to another instead of consolidating who they have and get more people. That shows you that already NUP that you're existing in is also problematic in its own way. What is important then for the country? DP being an oldest party, that should be their greatest strength. But what then is important is what can they offer for us? Are they going to change for us government and give us the best leadership we need? Or are they going to keep saying we have existed for 70 years and that is all that they are going to be bragging about? Are you able to give us a president, or are you going to give us a Minister of Constitution and Justice Affairs that is going to be siding with government? I think that should be more important compared to then us saying that we think one can then change, go here. I am not attacking the other gentleman anyways. That someone is going to say, I think I failed here, then I can go there. That is not a way to change. And you have noticed that most young people apparently have decided to say, I think I cannot exist in opposition anymore because of the environment that is there. People have seen NUP being problematic, people have seen DP being a problem, and they think that refuge is now in NRM. But if you look at what NRM itself is doing, is then the problem of the country, is the problem of society, is the problem of the economics that we are supposed to be focused on as Uganda. But then you have people suffering in those other opposition parties, and they think anyways, we think maybe the ideologies of NRM then can move forward because maybe these guys are good and they have power and resources, then maybe we can side with them. all the institutions in these political parties are very broken. It is upon these political parties to then sit and say, maybe I think it should have been even easier that as a country we have one ruling party and one opposition party, because apparently DP is fighting NUP is fighting FDC and things like that. So when you still have problems like that, you have internal problems, then you have ones that are like secondary internal, and then you have ones that go now to the entire nation. Then I do not know where you're going to survive from.
Thank you very much, my friend Melody. Isaac, I want to come back to you. I know it is a sad reality, but you have to accept it. It is the youth round table. The chairman Mao, like I've known him for many years, has tried to dress up himself as the ambassador of dialogue. That is into partnership to make dialogue with the current government, see that we achieve a transition. I don't know what failed dialogue to see a transition in DP, but I want to pick from you. Given the theme of this year's National Delegates Conference, where the National Delegates Conference is the top decision-making organ of any political party, what decisions did you achieve as DP members, and where do you see this Delegates Conference leave the Democratic Party going forward?
Yeah, thank you, Ivan. As you've said, not actually only, but people all over the country, in a person like Honourable Mao is seen as
he was one of the wise ghouls when he was in Makerere.
He was one. He's actually one of the wisest people.
He's still
that you can look at and look and have a presentable mind that you can say maybe someone who can really succeed Museveni. I don't think there are like more five people who can really present themselves better than Robert Mao, if you look at him as a person. But I want to tell Honourable Robert Mao straightforward that whatever you're doing is really discrediting yourself. Because people look at you as a good leader, but in reality what you're doing is completely different. Because surely an election which is being held by a Democratic Party, why would we have all these scaffolds within? You know, why would we have police? Why do we have security organs controlling an electoral process of a party? And more of a party that presents itself as
he's the right minister for all political parties. Is the Minister of Justice and Constitution.
No, ministerial things don't work here. Here we are about truth and justice. Whether you're a minister, whether you're a leader, whether you're who, if you don't hold the principles of
I want to get from you, was there a point of money in your election? Because it is one of the issues disturbing our politics. They have been so commercialized.
I can't say the politics was commercialized, but I can only say it was completely unfair.
The manners.
Yes, the manners were unfair. And to you talked about the RCs coming deputy. And I want to ask that gentleman, where do you get the guts of coming to the next conference to teach us the constitution of DP? Then for us as the members, we know what DP says. Because he came and said, Honourable Asiimwe, you're not supposed to be here because you know what the constitution says. Do you know the constitution more than us, the members?
Now, let me tell you, this is the problem.
So, no,
you as DP failing to uphold your own constitution is
I
why those external people then have to come in and say, these people have failed, then I think we need to help.
I wouldn't want you to say, we as DP. I would wish you to personalize this, because it's not all about the whole party.
Apparently the NDC was about the delegates of DP, so there is no way you exclude yourself from that.
I have got the right to explain myself because
sir.
I'm not being unfair to you, but I'm being honest. All what happened at the NDC, it wasn't our wish. Because if you reach Ugandans we are not like Kenyan. Kenyans are the hardliners, because when there's an unrest, I can trust Kenyans more than Ugandans. For us Ugandans, we have a lot of fear in us, and whenever there is violence, we expect people to go away. And according to the SEC, they say Norbert Mao got 900. I mean, let me go back to according to our membership. The NDC is supposed to have 1,200 members. These are facts, not that
So,
I'm forging. So Norbert Mao
got 969.
assumes he did get. I'm
No,
saying
let's
assumes.
discuss
Oh,
by what
Yes,
was given.
okay. He assumes, the EC assumes Norbert Mao got 969 votes.
Dr.
So
my
I
friend.
want you to be doing some total there.
I am a
969
mathematician.
votes. Dr. Lulu Mevaiga, they assume he got 339 votes.
Honorable
Alitia Elia, they assume he got 50 votes, 52. So when you add up, what do you get? You get 1,345 votes. So where did the 1,300 come from? You can really see it was just a play game. It was,
And weren't
and-
there
and
invalid
the
votes.
votes were more than the voters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
we are, the
What we
point
went-
is now clear. The
Yes.
votes were more than the
what we
voters.
went to do in Mbarara was not voting. We went to Mbarara to pass time.
There was
Yeah.
an allegation
Because
of your
the fact
students coming
remains,
to
the
vote
fact
for
remains, the results of the election were predetermined. We just went there to pass time.
a ritual.
You know, we went to pass time, assume we're having something reasonable, and
Those
come
who
back.
have never reached
But
in Mbarara.
in reality, there's no fair elections in Mbarara. And even them at the back of their mind, they know there was nothing in Mbarara that was fair. You look at me, I got a lot of interest in UYD because I belong to UYD. And though I belong to DP, because I'm a youth, I belong to UYD. Honourable Helen Sayuri, in reality, she got 460 votes. Honourable Michael Mpunge, he got 496 votes. And these are real figures because I was in Barara. I'm not forging things. We didn't have delegates more than 1,000. More than 1,000, we did. In reality, we have, I think, around 800, 900. I mean, 800, 700.
The Kanyamas
And
voted.
you can realize it in the UYD elections
How many did
because there
Robert
were two candidates in UYD. One got 460, and the other got 469. When you add up, we got 900 something.
900.
And these were the delegates which were in Barara. So you tell me. So which means when you're going to vote, we were given all the ballot papers for all positions. So which means 900 voted here, and then 1,300 voted in another position. Yet we were given the same ballot papers. You can see the injustice what were happening in Barara. So, as you said, what does the election in Barara give to the country? I think, as DP, this was the last nail on our coffin. We have completed lost track. And this is not the wish of the members. I think this is the wish of some few people who have their own personal interests. For us, as the CA that Norbert Mao got engaged with NRM, they talked about dialogue. They talked about peaceful transition of power. And in the 4 years that we've been in this CA, what has transpired? Have we had any dialogue? Have we had any transition of power? Have we had any electoral reforms? So you can see that these were all games and there was nothing.
You had the vista in the name of General Salim Sari.
There was nothing authentic in the EC, in the CA, which was between DP and NRM. And whatever happened in Barara, DP, we should just find another direction. We have completed lost track. And I think nobody is going to believe in DP going forward to the national election. Because if you continue having someone who are traumatized everything in the party at the home,
In the name of truth and justice, and is a minister of justice and constitutional affairs.
And you claim you stand for truth and justice, and whatever happening is actually injustice and fairness, then who is going to believe in you?
I think I've got yes.
Isn't there something that maybe DP?
I did
without
ask
Robert
of the
Mao can
internal
do?
reconciliation mechanisms like dialogue, and he has answered the question pretty clearly. That the chairman Mao uses a word called the grand iolota of the party. Still is a member to the committee of reconciliation is the one who appoints a reconciliation committee. So reconcile what when the votes were more than the voters. The Honourable Asiimwe, as we go for our break, I know time is not on our side. Where do you see? I know you did use a big word that you do welcome people who are tired of the rain in DP to come and take shelter in Kavule. But even in Kavule, sometimes the roof can have.
There is a new party.
But I think
from
Ivan,
there.
1 minute
Also,
before,
as a
1 minute
democratic,
before he
they can
comes in.
just shift to
1 minute before,
Alliance.
I think before he comes in, no member in DP is going to go to another political party. I think that one you forget it for a while.
Good.
For us,
Got it.
as the members of DP,
You
we are
roll
going
off.
to fight. We are going to try hard to restrain, to redirect this party to a better direction. But we are not, because literally Uganda doesn't need another political party. We already have enough parties in Uganda. The only thing we need is to re-identify ourselves,
Where we are
and
going,
organize ourselves.
where we are
to present
going,
ourselves as better
Uganda may
people.
have a political party just like a national.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was getting your comments.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the challenges facing internal democracies in parties, what is your way forward?
To start with, I want to thank His Excellency Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu for how he has so far taken the party, and I, for one, I would overwhelmingly support him in the coming elections for presidency of the party. What we can do, actually, for Uganda as a country, and on paper, we definitely have the best frameworks, the best policies, the best everything. And even if you looked at the law as the whole of it, if it is on paper, that's where it is all right in every angle. This is where we get problems. Implementation. How do we implement? A delegates conference is designated some activities. How do we conduct them? He has said it. The voters were less than the number of votes, and everything now is calm.
It's the votes that were more than voters.
The votes
For only one position of party president.
So, what I think we can do is we need to have dedicated leaders. Mr. Museveni, sometime back, he said, I wouldn't want to see any opposition as we're approaching, I think, the last general elections. And he has been steadily doing it. But he has got a stone in his shoe with the National Unity Platform. He has tried everything there is possible to impenetrate the National Unity Platform. But we thank God that we are still standing. So, for the implementation of the party constitution, I believe we are somewhere. We could have some faults somewhere. But I believe for now, we are on a good progress. I learned a lot from Norbert Mao. A lot. And
if you're a wise Ugandan, you can't say you learned nothing from
yes, now Norbert Mao, one time he said,
they claim he was very broke while at Makerere. But
now, Norbert Mao, one time he said, he told a story. It was like, one time this person died, went to heaven, he got a pass to heaven. So on reaching heaven, the good Lord was like, you can decide where you want to go. You can see heaven and you check on hell and see where you want to go. So this person first went to hell. First went to heaven and everything was boring. People are praising, people are doing this. And I said, let me check hell. On reaching hell, there was party. Everything was right, everything was joyous. So he came back to the good Lord. It was like, as he was asked, why and where have you chosen to go? It's like, my good Lord, you have to choose once. It was like, my good Lord, let me go to hell. He went to hell. On reaching hell, the things had changed. That the good Satan had his horns. The fire was everywhere. Everything had gone to normal as hell. So he was like, I should be going back. He was like, no, you can't go back. Now, Nobert Mao had this comment to make. When we are campaigning, we promise heaven on earth. So implying that the person on checking hell, there was a campaign day in hell. That is the true Nobert Mao. When he is speaking here, you will see heaven on earth. But in implementation, he's a dangerous person. He's not a good person. Thank you.
He was a victim of his own story. I do remember it very well. As we conclude this segment to go for a break, Mr. Edmund, I want to pick from you. What advice do you give to fellow young colleagues down there in these, I don't always like to refer opposition, but in these alternative parties going forward?
You see, bye-bye. This is what we are always going to get once we keep fronting people that are going to prioritize their pockets, their benefits, over principles. You have a man that everyone is praising, hey, very wise, oh, and then what happened? It's because you chose to cling on power, you chose the privilege that come with associating with
some
the
of
power
these problems are caused by poverty.
over principles. But you see, like Melody was saying, as he's talking about the National Unity Platform, and while you're having young people leaving the party and not joining alternative parties, not joining the one that Mpuga made, not joining UYD, but joining the NRM. These were people that were arrested. They were at the forefront of social justice. They're the ones that stood first into the camera and told us how the NRM is a junta. We are going to immunize the junta. Oh, no. Immunize the junta. All those things. And now they're dining with a junta. It can't be an issue of during that time what the junta is doing changed. No, it's an issue of the pocket. So you asked what advice I would give to the young people in the alternative parties they are in. I think it's important that we notice that this country is beyond ourselves, that tomorrow Nobert Mao won't be there, that tomorrow Melody won't be there, and it won't matter whether you drove a Range Rover, whether you had a lead car, whether you could beat people and have more votes than the voters. It won't matter then. What will matter is that the country has stayed. And when I look at the ones that are crossing, it breaks my heart when you think, oh, there is a group of old people that are supposed to be leaving, and when they leave, we're replacing them with these ones. We think these ones have seen the bad days and are going to be fighting for better days. Yet at the end of the day, they are doing the same exact things. Because look at where Mao was. A strong opposition. When Mao sat to speak about the injustices in this country, you're like, yes, if this man got a chance to sit in that chair, everything would be fine. But he is the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. What has changed? Look at the status of human rights right now. You have people being tortured, people being abducted on camera. These days, we don't even cover our faces. We abduct you on camera. And what has he done? What has he changed? And that is because we prioritized having people that are choosing themselves rather than choosing the principles that should matter.
Let's go for a break. As we return from the break, we shall return with issues of the NGO legal framework. It has been the Youth Roundtable. Continue engaged with us via Civic Space TV on YouTube, Civic Space TV on X. It is the Youth Roundtable. See you after break.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
We do welcome our viewers from that break. It still remains the Youth Roundtable. I'm still joined by the Honourable Asiimwe Derrick, the Mr. Ayesigwa Edmund, from a social justice activist, my friend Melody Nakalanzi, and my brother from the Uganda Young Democrats, that is Isaac Wamono. Our second area of discussion is the Non-Government Organization Act 2016 as amended. We are all aware that in 2019, as we are approaching COVID, the Executive Director of the NGO Forum had started on the regulatory impact assessment for the NGOs in Uganda. And today, Center for Constitutional Governance, with support of GIZ, the European Union, German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, have embarked on an assessment to assess the impact of the NGO policy, the NGO Act, with the objectives of seeing with the first objective being assessing the NGO policy and the NGO Act, highlighting key legal and constitutional issues, seek stakeholder understanding of key issues in the NGO policy and NGO Act, make recommendations for potential legal reform of the NGO policy and the NGO Act, participate in the mobilization of NGOs to meaningfully participate in the NGO legal reform process. That is what the Center for Constitutional Governance has embarked on. But my question here to Mr. Edmund, Uganda has one of the most highly populated regulation or densely regulated country in terms of the NGO sector, facing obligations in more than 15 laws that are here primarily to regulate NGOs, inclusive of the NGO Act itself. Where do you think the legal shortfalls of the NGO legal policy framework itself, but also in terms of deficiencies between the implementation and the policy itself on paper?
Okay, thank you, Ivan. I think it's important that for any country, for any entity, there is regulation in regard to the non-government organizations that are in place. And I think over time with amendment in 2016, there were a number of amendments made that are good for the NGO sector. For example, there was an amendment that allows NGOs to start doing businesses. But also it is important to, and I will speak from the angle of a social justice activist, not the lawyer that I am, because I am one of the people that believe that the law has been used multiple times to oppress the people that it's supposed to be protecting. So you look at the regulations that are given to NGOs, to CBOs, and some of those are just there to hinder the operations, especially when you have a government that is paranoid. Every little thing that comes up to them scares them. If you have an organization that is holding the government accountable, then those are foreign interests. You are getting foreign funds to destabilize the operations in the country and things like that. So while I believe that it's important that these policies exist, I think there should be a hold on the regulations and how they affect these NGOs. Because I remember there is a time, I don't remember which year it is, either 2020 or so, that for example, Chapter 4, Uganda, was closed and its license taken away, the NGO license. And it was being accused of, doing things like money laundering. I think it was 2021. And
in the election.
And they were doing investigations in line with the November massacres, the 2020 November massacres. And that's when the witch hunt comes in and they are closing the organization. So some of these regulations are there only to hinder the operations of these organizations. You'll have a very lengthy list of the requirements that you'll need to submit. Your money is being monitored. You have to declare your sources of income. All those things are good, I agree, because they speak to the sovereignty of the country.
Think in the new registration process, you need to submit over 15 documents.
Yeah. So imagine if you are starting an NGO and you are trying to, make a change, make a difference, but
because they do employ Ugandans, they do cause change, impact in society.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, you have to meet all these requirements. And it comes with payment, but also the bureaucracy of trying to register. If you look at the registration process, go to your area district, go to the line ministry, register as a company at URSB. It's such a lengthy process. But at the end of the day, for me, as a social justice activist, I believe that these things are meant to cripple mostly those organizations that target holding the government accountable or holding it in check. And so the law is being used as a tool in most of these occasions to make sure that the government finds a way to suppress or even oppress these organizations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edmund. I need to come to you, Melody. Given what Edmund lays for us on table as the youth round table, what are your views first on the Act providing for more legal requirements for registration? But also I want to pick your view on the discriminative categorization of NGOs. The very Act recognizes NGOs in around 3 to 4 categories, that is indigenous, regional, foreign, international, leading to different treatment and potential constitutional violations. That an indigenous NGO is treated differently from what they refer as international. Where does that leave first the space of sustainability NGO environment that are organically African, and also where Donald Trump has pushed us as a world, closing the bottlenecks of dependence?
Okay. Thank you once again, Ivan. I think what we need to acknowledge first is why these NGOs exist. If you notice in society, NGOs are the ones that are helping children living with disability, helping to uplift women, helping to bring out all those marginalized groups of people in society. They try to make sure that these people actually have a say and that their voices are heard. But on the discriminatory part, if you have NGOs that are operating to achieve an overall objective, which is more or less the same. Usually most of them try to make sure that marginalized groups have a say. But if you're trying to treat them different, it means then that kind of discrimination then puts their kind of operation at stake, that they cannot openly or ably participate in things that they are supposed to do to make sure that these individuals are then helped. If you say that an indigenous organization should follow A, B, C, D, and D, and then an international one should follow this, and this, it means that most of them are then going to be left out, and what they are most likely going to be in society is going to be different. Notice that discrimination is something that is like really general, and anytime you have discrimination happening, it means a certain group is really compromised and is not going to like actively participate in whatever they were going to do and achieve change. But also you ask me about the kind of regulation and how big it, how bad it is to these entities, that the legal framework requires you to present at least 15 papers. Number one, you're taking a lot of these people's time to make sure that they create the change they want. If you're telling this person that they need about 15 to 20 documents to support them to exist, Edmund already tells you bureaucracy is important, but to what extent does the bureaucracy exist? Should it really be that much that someone is actually going to say, hey, these things are too much, I don't think this environment is actually good for me that I can actually operate? Or is it supposed to be favorable that even when you're asking for 15 documents, that someone is able to get them and then start operation? Notice that this is then going to put the country at a cost that that an organization says, why does this, or why do these, like all these regulations exist? And they're like, okay, I think we can then take our kind of help to other people at the end of the day. There are countries in Africa that are suffering, there are countries in Asia that are suffering, just like Uganda is. I think then these organizations then can say, I think we can then operate somewhere else where like the environment is favorable for us to like operate. Because for them, their intention is to make sure that people's lives are changed. So if they find a place where then they can change people's lives, then I think they decide to go to those places at the end of the day. You also asked me about how America has withdrawn. This is a very big impact. America is doing a lot. I don't know if the African continent is noticing most of these things. The other day I was reading that that students can no longer go to Harvard from certain countries, something like that. Notice that these are all things that affect the entire continent, especially Africans. For us, if we are open to having Americans come in the country, then why can't we go there and exchange with them? We know they are a superpower, right? But notice that their existence is also dependent on us. Most of the food they eat comes from Africa. What happens when Uganda wakes up and says, we are not going to give you food? What happens when the whole African continent says, we are not going to supply milk to the US for the entire year? It means those people are going to, their lives are also going to be put at stake.
They may not manufacture cow. Yeah.
Exactly. They are not going to manufacture a cow even when they have whatever kind of technology. Notice exactly. Notice that these people like depend on us. But at the time when you wake up and say that we are withdrawing this kind of aid, well, people will argue that there are advantages that come with these things. But notice that Africa and Uganda in general we're supposed to learn from these things. If they've said we are not giving you aid anymore, tell them we are also not giving you milk, we are not giving you coffee. Then that is the kind of like, that is how things should be. You do not say I've withdrawn aid.
You trade, you don't be a beggar.
Exactly. Tell them we are giving you this, you're giving us
I
this.
think Trump has brought that deal-making syndrome. People are now making, I saw China making a deal this week in a similar approach.
And I think China is a better actor in this kind of like discussion. China does not just give you their things like that. They'll give you Entebbe Express, but you have to pay for it before you sink it.
They take the sand in Loera.
Exactly. They take something, you get something from them. They come and put an industry here, they employ some of your people. That is how it should happen. Not that I am supposed to depend on you. What the US's problem then is that they think they are helping us, that we have nothing to offer for them. I do not know if our presidents and leaders see these things and discuss them, but I think that is something that should be important, especially when in the world of NGOs that are going to face a lot of regulation at the end of the day.
Thank you very much. I want to come to you, the Honourable Asiimwe Derrick. key issues the current legal framework has is the issue of restrictive permits and scope of works. These are restrictions geographically, subject, time limitations. You all know that sometimes these restrictions, given our political environment, they do not only limit impact, but also hinder flexibility. DGF faced similar challenges before it left here. That when your scope is limited or your area of scope is actually even not limited but guaranteed, but you tend to act in a way that doesn't appease the regulator, you face key issues. My question is, do you think if we got a regulatory body that is issuing these NGO permits, it would solve a problem that if I want to register an NGO and I'm an NUP member, I don't need to be subjected to requirements that are outside the law or to impress anyone to run a successful, because we see most of these NGO dons or CEOs who are running successful NGOs, but they are addressing key challenges of society today, are facing a lot of issues with the politicians. What do you make of that?
Actually, that's a very interesting topic. In fact, let me first put this book here. I think we need to draw a difference between NGOs and civil society organizations. They are more or less the same. The legal regulation that is there, the law right now, it was council would elaborate more later. It was changed even to the capitation 109 as of now. It's no longer the NGO Act of 2016, CAP 109. What is being targeted right now? They are not just NGOs. What is being targeted are civil society organizations. Now,
educate me for once. Civil society being run on a different legal framework?
They aren't being run on a different format. But for one to maneuver or for one to operate as a civil society organization, it must be first be registered as an NGO. So most cases, NGOs are registered for charity. That's the behind knowledge that most of the people have. But for you to operate a CSO, you must also register it as an NGO. They serve different purposes. I appreciate the CEO, the founder of the Center for Constitutional Governance. I'll elaborate later. So these NGOs that these people want us to be inclined to, or that would easily get past to registration, they are those that are into charity. You want to give girls pads, you want to help the disabled, they're doing a great job. The person that government is targeting, civil society organizations, especially those that are commentators on public affairs or the politics of how this country is run. You gave a very good example. Digital governance facility. It was democracy governance facility. It was closed down towards the last general election. Same thing happened to Chapter 4 of Senior Counsel Nicholas Opio. There is another CSO that is pointing fingers at government. I don't know if I should state it, but I keep it. I suspect that before the end of this very year, today Wednesday, before the end of this very year, there's going to be an issue with them. So, to our friends who are in the NGOs, you are doing a great job. Don't cease, don't stop. You are helping us. Some of the people have started on NGOs. The girls have been empowered on NGOs. Boys have been skilled on NGOs. Now, to the civil society organizations, you're doing a great job. We wouldn't be here if it is not an activity of a civil society organization. They have done a great job into demystifying what government has banked in us in the education system. Don't question this one. Don't question that. They have showed us light. I'm speaking to why these people are going to be sabotaged more. These CSOs have taught you and me that right now a person of my age will follow what is happening in the country, will read the law, will follow the trend of the politics of where and where. The youth will involve. Remember these things we had left them for older people back then, 10 years from now, 10, 20 years back then. So these CSOs are going to be targeted. Even if you get all the requirements, it will take you after the coming general election for you to register. One, remember they are names. As you're submitting, you have to submit the name. As you submit the name, you have to submit the objectives of what you are going to do. If there is anything related to waking up the people's minds regards the political spectrum or how the country is being run, I tell you for free.
There is a time some people in the civil society ranked more than the opposition in governance.
And it is true. They're doing a great job. These people are, you see, in most cases, we Ugandans are not interested in reading. But these CSOs are going to come and they say now, this is the money that has been allocated to Molago. This is the money that has been allocated for entertainment of the officials in parliament. Only to find that the money that is to officials' entertainment is much more than the money given
Kofi
to
Marathon has a big budget than Kyambogo University.
Than Kyambogo University, an educational institution. So, civil society organizations, I want to call them human rights defenders, social justice advocates. Good thing we have one. What this framework is targeting on you is to seize your operations before the coming general election. And besides, the other thing that the framework is going to do is going to earn some good money for my friend who is a lawyer. Because you're going to need the lawyers to collect the documents here and there, URSB here and there. So, and also this framework is also wanting to bring a clause.
Is that a good thing?
For the lawyers. For now, you're in the thing. Is wanting to closely monitor what these CSOs are doing. You want to go to the people of Kaperebyong to speak to them about their rights. The money are given to them by the budget. Have they got the money? Now, if these people know that we have not yet got the money, they are going to rise against their leaders. That is what government, by bringing that framework, is trying to sabotage. So, I would advise Mr. Museveni that he should get his hands off civil society organizations.
I want to pick something from Mr. Edmund, given your exposure on the NGOs. Part of the proposals that are being presented by Center for Constitutional Governance and its partners is creation of an apex body called the National Council of NGOs as a new overreaching regulatory body. But my quick question here is, does centralizing oversight potentially make policy implementation or improve coordination, or will centralizing of the oversight, administration, regulation to one organization, that council they expect, will it give efficiency to the operations but also the environment of NGOs in Uganda? Because we have seen bodies before who have decentralized, but our interest is in evaluating the impact.
Well, I think it's important that we ask ourselves if whether the council takes away the responsibility of government to check or to do the very things it has been doing. Because the NGO forum, for example, exists now, right? But what role does it play? If the council existed, would it hinder, for example, the things that he talks about, how organizations are being closed and targeted?
Key of their challenges, they benchmark from Tanzania, but we do have a crisis that our institutions are not as strong as our neighbors. Because the Tanzania National Council of NGOs focuses on coordination, networking, capacity development, information sharing, lobbying, and promoting self-regulation, as well as providing a framework for NGO oversight. Do we have a capacity to have an institution that can do all this in Uganda?
Like I said earlier, we have a problem with our institutions. All our institutions, at the end of the day,
including Democratic Party.
It's an institution.
But you see, the point is, at the end of the day, every institution is now reporting to one man. So if you have the council, and before you realize, the act that establishes the council says the chairperson of the council shall be appointed by the president. What difference does it make? Because look at the Uganda Human Rights Commission, a body that is supposed to be keeping the government in check in regards to human rights, but because its chairperson is appointed by the president, there are issues they can't comment about. There are issues they never come out to address. So if the council exists and it's an independent body, which is most likely not going to happen, because if you cannot allow an NGO to exist, then I don't think you can allow a body that is going to coordinate multiple NGOs to exist without your hand in it. But if that was possible to exist, that a body is going to be there and it's independent without the interference of government, then I think it would be a very good strategy in making sure that these things are coordinated the way they are supposed to be without having interference. But also I wanted to comment about something that he mentioned, and it's very vital, how he talks about the civil society organizations being targeted. And I agree with him that now that elections are coming, tougher regulations are going to come, bureaucracies are going to tighten. So I think we have a responsibility as Ugandans to be on the watch ourselves. We can't keep counting on who gives us this information, what the CSOs are doing. Or I think in our capacity, like I said earlier, I work with a movement with a people that is not registered and it's deliberate. And we have traveled to very many districts. We're doing civic education. But if we chose to register now, I think the registration would be complete in 2030, because your objectives are that you're going to train people about their civic rights. You're going to start conversations around the politics that happen in this country. So I feel like much as this is happening, we can devise means to make sure that the things that we should be talking about can still happen with or without the registration and the reservations holding us back.
Isaac,
Yes.
my question is on community-based organizations. Where me and you come from in the hills of Mountain Elgon, where you're a leader in Manafwa District, part of the key issues limiting the impact of community-based organization is the scope of operation. Most of them are limited to a sub-county, which creates a very big operation cost if they are to create greater impact because of the limited environment. And yet, if CBOs were opened maybe to a county or constituency level, they would have their positioning in one sub-county have a greater impact. And so why most have shied away from that business is that they will only go to communities that are in around centers, accessible to electricity, Although some in Karamoja over time did cause great impact. My question is, do you think if in the legal framework the law was opened to allow community-based organizations first registration accessible, as a Ugandan who would want to also see, because majorly we have interpreted this as a donor business, the white man's business. First of all, does our education, you were at the Department of Arts and Social Sciences, our times at Kyambogo, where there was social work and social administration.
No, I wasn't there.
You were
Yeah.
management, as a person who was at School of Management.
Yeah.
Where does this leave the issue of, first, the impact that CBOs should be creating if first given an environment where they can have a greater margin of impact, but second, like they said, I want to pick your view on requirements. Very many people would be running organizations on financial literacy in community, but they are still limited to regulations and costs of registration more than even costs of operation. As a youth leader, what is your say on that?
Yeah, thank you, Ivan. I think what I would say is the CSO and NGOs actually play a bigger role in helping the government to achieve its intended goals in communities. I don't know why the government should continue frustrating them, why the government should continue tightening the activities, why the government should really put tough regulations, tough, registration mechanisms. Why would you do that? Because whatever they do, they will be helping the government.
The man of the National Inter Platform has a word called Okulavisa.
Yeah, exactly. You see now, like for me, where I come from, Manafwa, deep down there's so many activities that the government cannot provide to its people. But when an NGO comes on board, they always play a big role in helping the government and trying to complement the government on what they do. Like recently when we had massive landslides in the hills of our region, and the people who helped was not even the government. They were NGOs, and I don't really know why the government should keep on fighting NGOs and trying to make their work hard. But as you know, I'm not against the regulations, because in any environment to have a good, smooth running of activities, there should be regulations. But my worry is why would them be so tight to an extent that someone fails, to an extent that you suffocate the operation of activities. I think it is upon the government to understand and to really acknowledge the work that the NGOs do and the CBOs do, and try to provide a good environment for them to work. That's what I think.
Melody, most of these NGOs in Uganda target they call them special interest groups or vulnerable groups. In Uganda, where there are women, there are youth, or children, women and youth, we are taken to be vulnerable. I don't know why, who categorized us as that. Until I become past 30, when I am no longer vulnerable. So my question is, there has been an issue of excessive fines for non-registration and operating without a permit. In a country with a young population as Uganda, we need to see people like Mr. Edmund as CEOs of an NGO, because the issue here is, without seeing that maybe they are opening up a branch of employment to sustain community, but they're also doing administrative work on behalf of government to see that they cause social change and impact in society. Looking at the very question that I'm posing, where do continued suffocating of NGOs leave the people you represent very well in terms of gender, but the future of Uganda's NGO society as we conclude.
Okay. This kind of suffocation, Edmund already tells you that he works for a movement that has deliberately refused
I'm
to
about
register.
to be arrested.
Yes, and he's about to be registered and be fined because he has no permit to operate.
He's about to be arrested.
But he also says that it would take him another 5 or 10 years to get full registration. What then happens to the kind
Registration is not free.
Yes.
And we have a young population that needs to create
exactly.
impact.
So
Jobs.
registration is not free, but that wouldn't be a problem. But also how long it is going to take. But also, what is the guarantee that you're going to get registered?
Yes.
One thing we need to notice, these NGOs and these CSOs are not doing anything bad to this country. When Edmund is working for a movement, he's trying to make sure that the people that they are trying to touch are going to like get changed and things like that. No one wants to kill anyone that is working with an NGO. No one wants to kidnap people because they are using the name of an NGO. Most of these people, actually for us we call them faith-based organizations. Most of them are even like hinged on like religious values, and we all know that these are people that cannot just do bad things. This is not like, okay, I'll leave this. These are not people that are bad that want to kill you. These people are trying to do something for like the country and making sure that even
so their objectives are not as hostile as government.
They are not as hostile as the kind of environment that government is putting for them. These people are making sure that people have civic education, understand why in the kind of election that we are going to have, that people need to like know why they are supposed to vote or why they are supposed to vote for a particular candidate. But when you have a kind of suffocated system that such a movement is going to stop operating in the next few days, or even is being charged like a lot of money to operate, yet that little money that money that you're asking them to use to like do registration would even be used to like change a life or 2 lives somewhere, and then you're now taking up this money because apparently this now goes back to government that you're going to use this money for your own selfish interests and your corruption things and things like that, because NGO Forum does not just keep with this money itself but has to account to government over time after they have done registration. Notice that these fines and permits are going to like have a lot of organizations closed. And what then that means is that unemployment is that people are going to suffer again. There are students that are in school because NGOs exist. There are
courses in our education.
Exactly. There are students that are eating because NGOs exist. If you go to refugee camps, it is NGOs that are helping these people live. So what happens at a time when maybe an organization that has been providing food for a refugee settlement is then closed because they do not have a permit? Are you saying that these people then should die because they are in a foreign country? They cannot even survive on their own. It means a lot of people are going to get compromised and a lot of people are going to suffer from this kind of like law. Maybe there could be an alternative at the end of the day. Allow these people continue existing and working, and then you can do your registration as they continue operating, as long as they do not infringe on the rights of anyone, as long as they do not harm anyone in society.
We shall pick the closing remarks of the show from you, Edmund. Since time is not on our side, I wanted to pose the Honourable Asiimwe. What is the national inter-platform strategy of dealing with NGOs in 2026?
Exactly.
But I will end with you, Edmund, for purposes of time. Part of the proposals include creation of a basket fund for NGOs. As you conclude, you will comment on that, but also give your concluding remarks to our viewers.
Okay. Actually, that's something I'd noted to talk about. See, it's been a heated argument for a lot of time especially on X, about how these people are getting money from foreigners and things like that. And the question is, what is wrong with having donors or funders that are willing to pay for the work that you are going to do? Because the kind of work that NGOs do requires money, right? So when for example, what Melody is talking about, that
my question is, how does it affect independence?
Independence of who?
The NGO.
Getting money from foreign funders. You see, I think how the funding works,
because
is
at
that,
the end of the day, you need to account, you need to be
is that-
transparent.
yes, but how funding works is that I have an objective, right?
You fund the objective.
I want to give pads to girls, right? I don't have the money, but Melody has the money, and she has a similar objective in mind, so she can be able to give me the money to fund that work, though she is maybe out of the country, or she's another organization out of the country. So whose independence is being compromised they are in? That should be the ultimate question. And especially
fear
for
getting credit on another person's money.
especially for
They behave like a
CSOs,
political party.
for CSOs, you know, they're saying, hey, these ones are being paid to destabilize the countries. And these are CSOs that are talking about things like human rights violations, election rigging. And the alternative is simple. If you do not want them to do the kind of work that they are doing, then the human rights violations shouldn't be there. If they weren't there, they wouldn't have to be doing what they're doing. If you don't want NGOs to be giving food to people in Manafwa, then if a landslide happens, then the government should chip in to do the work that the NGO is doing, then the NGO will not have the work to do. But also talking about the fund, I think it's important that such a thing exists, because you, for example, look at what has happened with Trump and the US aid cuts. Very many people have lost their jobs. Projects have ceased, and there were many people benefiting from the projects that were funded by USAID. So I think it's important that if that fund existed, then you would have sustainability. You would have sustainability in terms of funding. But lastly, I think it's important for every Ugandan, and now I'm saying this as a social justice activist, that every Ugandan is awakened to the kind of country that we live in, the kind of country that wants to oppress those that dissent, the kind of country that wants to hold back anyone that wants to say anything against it. And we cannot keep waiting for these NGOs or for the foreign funders to come in. I think every one of us has a responsibility to play in making sure that this country takes a step, and the better we start now, the good for the country.
Thank you very much, Edmund. It has been the Youth Roundtable with the Honourable Isaac Wamono, Melody Nakalanzi, and the Honourable Asiimwe Derrick. We do appreciate the Center for Constitutional Governance, our production team. You could leave us any feedback on Civic Space TV on YouTube, X, Facebook. I call it a week. I want to wish you a blessed week. It has been the Youth Roundtable. My name is Masawi Ivan. Thank you.